Ottoman women truly began their lives when they were old enough to become married. Ages 12 to 14 were the years when girls would become married. Though these young girls had not had enough life experience to maintain a marriage, their mother-in-law would become sort of a guide for her daughter-in-law. The process of marriage began with a visit to the Goroku, or viewer. The Goroku was a woman dispatched by the family of the prospective groom to scout for a bride. She could be the groom's mother, relative, or a hired woman. Once a particular girl had been selected by the boy's family, it remained for the girl's father to give his consent. Very often the families knew one another, and the consent or lack of it came quickly. In those cases where little was known about the boy's family, the girl's father made careful inquiries as to their status. Meanwhile, the girl's family had to resort to the izahar, divination by dreams. If the suitor was to be rejected, this gave an easy excuse, or dreams did not turn out well. When the girl's family was satisfied with the family and character of the groom, representatives of the two families would meet to agree on a dowry on mutual agreeable terms. These representatives would also fix the date for the engagement and the legal ceremony. The boy's father and two male relatives would then call on the girl's father in order to get the promise of his daughter at the command of God and the prophet. They also would settle where the couple would reside. The dowry was the next step of the marriage process. The first part, which the Ottomans called the agurlik, was paid before the marriage contract was signed. Its purpose was to help settle the cost of the wedding and to contribute to the furnishing of the couple's home. In the mid-19th century, it ranged from 5,000 to 20,000 gold piastres. The main portion of the dowry was the nikah money, the sum the husband contracted to pay for his wife in the event that he divorced her. The sum also came to her if he died while she was still his wife. No Muslim marriage was valid without a dowry. On the appointed day, the kit or signing of the contract took place at the home of the bride. This was done by male parents or guardians of both the bride and the groom. In the presence of imam and male witnesses, the bride and her attendants usually occupied in an adjacent room. The imam read out loud the conditions of the contract. The bride's only part of the ceremony was to answer yes 3 times when the imam asked her consent through an open door. The imam then signed the contract, and he did so, prayed the couple would be happy and prosperous. The groom did not have to be present at the ceremony. He just had to have a representative there, and once the bride and the groom were married, the representative would run to tell the husband that he was married. Next to marriage, the most important event in the life of an Ottoman woman was the birth of a child. It was attended by almost as much ceremony as a wedding. It was usual for the family to have a favorite midwife, one of whom it had confidence in. Only an extremely dangerous delivery could justify calling in a doctor, for to have a male representative at such a time was a disgrace to the family. When the prospective mother was 6 or 7 months pregnant, the midwife was brought in to get in the order of swaddling clothes and the outfit of charms against an evil eye. The midwife wrapped all this equipment in a piece of cloth, meanwhile sprinkling fennel seed all over it and saying, Bismillah. Then she attached a small Koran bag to the piece of cloth and hung the whole arrangement on the wall in the direction of Mecca. The midwife was not needed until the birth of the child. As soon as the woman's labor was sufficiently progressed, the midwife sat in the childbirth chair, which had side arms, a high back, and a seat scooped out to facilitate the delivery of the child. Just before the babies had appeared, the midwife, along with the other women in the room, proclaimed, Tekbir, God is most great. As soon as the child was born, they raised their voices in the witnessing, I bear witness that I will worship no God but God, and that Muhammad and his slave and prophet. The midwife immediately washed the newborn in warm water and cut its navel cord, saying, May his voice be beautiful. She then gave the baby its preliminary name and sprinkled it 3 times with fennel seed. The baby was swaddled, wrapped in muslin, and taken to its mother's bed. The mother, meanwhile, had been stretched out on a couch that was ornamented with mother of pearl and adorned with quilts of satin and velvet. At its head was hung a Koran and an embroidered bag, and at the end or near its foot hung an onion impaled with a skewer, wrapped in a red muslin and ornamented with garlic and blue beads. These were to protect the mother from the evil eye, to which a new mother and baby were thought to be particularly susceptible. On the second day, the bearer of good news ran to the houses of relatives and friends, bringing the news of the birth. Back at the house, the woman was dressed up to receive her husband. The father was handed the child and held it toward Mecca. He chanted the baby's real name 3 times. If the new mother was well enough, she had a reception for her friends and relatives on the 3rd day. The visitors did not admire the baby, as they would have shown envy and invoked the evil eye. They either ignored it, called it an ugly thing, or pretended to spit on it in disgust. Instead, the guests paid plenty of attention to the new mother, who was given gold jewelry as a gift. Incense was burned in the morning and evening to protect the mother and child from the evil eye. For 40 days, the mother was thought to be exposed to the influence of evil spirits, and for that reason could not be left alone. If there was no way to avoid leaving her alone, a broom was placed behind the door, kind of like a scarecrow tactic. At the end of this period, the new mother had her 40-day bath in the family's private bath. Once the new mother was bathed, it was the child's turn. First, the midwife recited the names of the 40 saints of Islam. Then, as soon as the child had been soaked and rinsed, she rubbed it with fresh duck egg, which had been beaten in a cup. Then the baby was rinsed. Although children were a source of pride in the eyes of Ottoman women, once she had all the children she wanted, many resorted to abortion, and that's where it stands today.